You're listening to the J.D. Rucker Show. Let's begin. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the J.D. Rucker Show. News flowing, just like it's just free flowing, and it has been every day. You know, there's one thing that I can say that has been really been the case ever since, we'll say, election season started getting heated up in 2024. All the way through to today, there was a time, and keep in mind, for those who don't know, I do have, with all these news aggregators that I operate, one that I own at jdrucker.com, and the other ones that I work with. I have to read the news all the time, like constantly, 1,500 to 2,500 headlines a day. And I can tell you this, that ever since mid-2024, the news cycle has just accelerated so fast. You know, during the Biden years, and really even during the first Trump administration, things were very newsish, right? I mean, there was a lot of news going on, but it was nothing compared to what we're experiencing today. And I would argue that that's sort of part of the plan. Keep us all looking in 15, 20, 30, 500 different directions at any given moment. That way we can't focus in on the ones that are super important. This is where, you know, conspiracy theorists like me, we tend to have a heyday, but it's almost becoming challenging just to keep up with, okay, what conspiracy are we talking about now? It used to be, what are we talking about today? Heck, it used to be, what are we talking about this week? Now it's, okay, so, no, got a new one. Oh, whoa, nope, hold on. There's a new one. And it's funny because when it comes to conspiracy theories, I have always been called that crazy conspiracy theory guy. I'm no longer one of the crazy ones. Apparently, my level of crazy has been usurped, has been just jumped over hardcore by this new batch of conspiracy theorists, and we can expect with an absolute certainty that the conspiracy theories are going to go crazy based upon the latest big blockbuster of the day.
Well, Kaylee, this is a story that deals with many different suspects in many different states, and we are learning, looking through these documents, that a mother in Ohio had the courage to call authorities on her 19-year-old, and she expressed some concern, and she may have blown this entire case open. His name is 19-year-old Tyson Proper, and he was picked up after she called authorities on June 10th, just a few days ago. This was 4 days before the UFC fight. We want to show some images. The first image, I believe, that we're going to show is a rifle that belonged to her son, according to authorities. The other is a screen grab, several screen grabs showing aerial images and maps of the Washington, D.C. area, and discussing where snipers possibly would be related to the White House. This is all evidence that is posted on an official court docket right now, an official government document. But I will say 19-year-old Tyson Proper's mother called police after she was concerned about his purchases and communications with people online. It then led them to conversations that he allegedly had with someone named Brian Roa and Michael Thomas in Southern California. They appeared yesterday before a federal judge. We're also told that there is a suspect in Nebraska and one in Missouri as well. So what we're being told here, Kaylee, and everyone on the couch, is that this alleged plot consisted of a plan to have drones that were actually armed with some type of firepower go and attack buildings around the White House. And once people left, they were going to have snipers nearby attacking some of the people leaving. This was a serious plot. The FBI, the Secret Service investigating this right now. And as you heard the deputy director of the Secret Service right there say that they believe there are more people out there. Right now, though, 5 people facing these charges. And it's incredible to go through these documents and see what happened. But it appears that it was this 19-year-old's mother in Ohio who really spilled the beans on this entire case by letting people know that she had some concerns about her son, Kaylee.
It's tough, you know, when you have a kid that's engaged in something like that. That would be awful. I feel bad for my parents, but yeah, she had to turn her kid in because she thought that he might be up to something, and apparently he was. Now, we don't have confirmation yet. We have a pretty good idea. I was going to play some of the TikTok videos from Tyson proper. Some of the videos that he had posted, he had actually left TikTok and said that he wasn't going to participate in it anymore. He didn't think that the Chinese were spying. He said they might have been, but he actually really thought it was more likely the U.S. government that was spying, and he allegedly, in the early days, so I don't want to get too deep into this, but in these early moments of the alleged incident, or the alleged plot, it does seem as if this was an anti-government group. Let's pull over. Let me see if I can do this pretty quickly. Pull over the. There it is. Got it. Okay. So this is from New York Post. White House Freedom 250 plot involved up to 12 suspects across the U.S. Initial reports were it's 23 suspects. But 12 suspects across the U.S. with violent radical ideologies. They have identified 3 of the suspects who have been arrested. Young guys, white guys. Let's see if they've got some pictures. This there on the screen, if you're looking, is Tyson proper, 19 years old. The TikTok videos that I was watching of his were from when he was 14. He was a self-declared geek, good with computers, but he also posted images of his firearms. Let's see if they have those. There's one. Looks like a bullpup. Is that a bullpup? It could be. Type of firearm that yeah, I mean, it's got the American flag on it. This was, according to certain reports, they're saying that this was an accelerationist group. In other words, this is the type of group that, and it can be left wing or right wing. Okay, it's the type of group that they try to push for cultural upheaval. Right? They want hyper capitalism and hyper technological advances in order to basically sort of have society destroy itself. That's the basic ideology. According to the article, the plot to attack the UFC Freedom 250 event on the White House South Lawn Sunday night involved at least 12 suspects across the U.S. who adhere to an accelerationist ideology and hope to bring down American capitalism, according to the federal law enforcement sources. The FBI foiled their plans by infiltrating a signal chat group that was planning the devastating attack, with the parent of one suspect reporting him to local police, sources told the Post. The suspects are charged in at least 4 states: California, Ohio, that's where Tyson proper is from, Missouri, and Nebraska, and intended to kill multiple politicians. And really, it wasn't just politicians. Allegedly, they were going after anybody who was tied to Epstein. That's what they felt that they were going after. And again, there's multiple reports about this, so I'm hoping that we'll get some clarity. But allegedly, this is an anti-AIPAC group, an anti-Epstein group that believe that the Trump administration is covering up for a whole bunch of people, and that that apparently Trump may have been involved in the Epstein stuff, and and this is what I'm talking about when I say that the crazies are starting to really come out and make my brand of conspiracy theories almost obsolete. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, did you check out the information about Building 7? And they're like Epstein's rules the world, and his people are protecting him and his cronies, and it's all these rich people, and they're drinking whatever child blood or something. I don't know. But the real crazies are coming out now and saying that this is all just a false flag. This is totally Israel. It's just totally Israel. Everything. It's always going to be Israel to these guys. And before anybody starts saying, "Oh my gosh, he's Israel." Look, I have been extraordinarily critical of Israel over the years. Political Israel, to me, has the same types of challenges that we have. In many cases, they're worse. I still am that weird conspiracy theorist who thinks that there's no way that Hamas could have pulled off October 7th without some inside help from the Israeli deep state or members of the Israeli government or whatever. I was saying that on October 8th. And I think there are challenges, but there's this perception that Trump is owned by Netanyahu, and he's. There was one headline I saw earlier that Trump is Netanyahu's jailhouse bride or something like that. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. You know, maybe I'm the weird one here, but such concepts don't make any sense because Trump, I think, has demonstrated that he's nobody's jailhouse bride. He just does what he does. Like it, don't like it, love him, hate him, whatever. He does what he's going to do. And I'm not saying that he doesn't take into consideration other people or that he doesn't have an affection towards Israel or anything like that. What I'm saying is that he's not owned by Israel. And I think he demonstrated that on Sunday, and he demonstrated it again today when they were asking him about, you know, what's happening between Israel and Lebanon, and if there's going to basically, if Hezbollah and Israel, if that's going to blow up the whole Iran deal. And Trump doesn't think it will, but he wasn't exactly very nice about Israel. Watch.
He's done an amazing job of pulling it together. He's not a Boy Scout, but he's done an amazing job of pulling it together. And he is very good with Hezbollah, does not like them. And I'll tell you what, Israel's fighting Hezbollah too long and too many people are being killed. And you don't have to knock down an apartment house every time you're looking for somebody, because there are a lot of people in those apartment houses, and they're not all Hezbollah, that I can tell you. And I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah. Because to be honest with you, I think they do a better job of doing it.
Is that Jabba on board with
And I didn't like Syria. I didn't like where 2 hours before we're signing the agreement that there was an attack in Lebanon, in Beirut. It was right in, it wasn't like in the southern side, and you know, it was in Beirut. I did not like that. I let them know that. I didn't like it, not at all. But I think that Syria, you know, he's pulled that country together amazingly quickly.
Oh yeah, totally totally in bed with Netanyahu. Look, Trump calls it like he sees it. Okay? Again, you like the way he does things, you don't like the way he does things, he doesn't care. He's going to do what he's going to do. That's one of the reasons that he's been as successful as he has been over the decades. It's one of the reasons that the United States is in better shape than it was before he returned to office. We look at the border, we look at our standing in foreign affairs, we look at the way that the world looks at us. They are concerned, they are fearful, but they are also respectful. And they take that into account. We look at what's happening with the borders, not just with the actual people crossing the border, which there aren't very many, but also the deportees. Look, you can be in favor of certain components of immigration. Look, I'm not exactly Mr. Cut off all immigration. No, I'm not like that. I want certain types of immigration to stop. I definitely want it to be merit-based, not random. If they're going to pay to get people over here for jobs, then make them pay a lot. Make it to where it's not going to be financially beneficial for a company to want to bring over a foreign worker. All that's awesome. But when it comes to illegal immigration, yeah, I'm absolutely positively against it. And I want to deport them all. There are these question marks about, oh my gosh, shouldn't we just deport the violent ones or the criminal ones or whatever? They're all criminals. So, not sorry to say that. They are all criminals, 100%. But that wasn't the only crazy stuff that's happened today. News has been again flying off the shelf, and one of the big ones, it's really discouraging. The SCIF, the secure rooms, especially the one in the White House, is supposed to be completely, totally, absolutely, positively foolproof. You can't even start a meeting if there's a phone in presence, and yet somehow, allegedly, they were able to not only get recording devices into the SCIF and record sensitive information, including about Iran, but then they were able to take that recording and get it to journalists, including journalists like Jonathan Swan, who absolutely hate President Trump. And now there's a book out, and it's all sorts of bad.
A report from news website Axios details how top White House officials believe that a pair of New York Times reporters obtained classified audio from meetings in the Situation Room. The Situation Room, of course, is meant to be one of the most secure settings on the planet. Leaked recordings would have big implications for our national security. Maggie Haberman, a longtime critic of the president, and Jonathan Swan allegedly got their hands on the audio recordings and used them for their new book titled Regime Change. The book includes almost verbatim conversations surrounding the war in Iran, and a source within the administration told Axios, quote, "We're afraid some of our most sensitive conversations were being recorded, and we have no idea which ones." Joining me now is New York Congressman Mike Lawler. Congressman, great to see you. Who would be the leaker in this case, or recording these conversations without the knowledge of the president?
Well, beats the heck out of me, but obviously it is deeply concerning if anyone was recording conversations in the Situation Room. As a member of Congress, we go into classified settings all the time, especially as chair of the Middle East and North Africa Subcommittee on the Foreign Affairs Committee. These are deeply sensitive conversations, and they most certainly should not be recorded. So, that is something that if they really feel there was a leak of any kind, it should be fully investigated. From my vantage point, anytime you're dealing with national security issues, I don't care what the topic is, this is not something that should occur, and I think they should try to get to the bottom of it as best they can.
I mean, as you know, even in these settings, you're not even supposed to wear a smartwatch in, like an Apple Watch or a Garmin or something of that nature. No electronics at all, because of the sensitive nature of the information you're dealing with.
No question. And by the way, when we go into these classified briefings, for instance, when we have a full member of Congress brief, all 435 members, they won't even start the meeting if they detect a Apple Watch or a smartphone or any type of electronic device, and they scan for them. So for that to occur in the Situation Room certainly would be disconcerting. How anybody would be able to get a device in there, and or who would have done it.
The president is reportedly furious, understandably. Have you heard from him or anyone who would be in the Situation Room with him throughout the Iran war about their reaction to this news?
No, I haven't, but I can only imagine the frustration that would result. I mean, look, you're talking about deeply serious issues that the president and his administration should have full confidence that they can have sensitive discussions without the possibility of a leak. And as chair of the Middle East, I mean, these are decisions and issues that, I've been engaging with the administration on for months. And many of these conversations do occur on secure lines, and they should, because the objective is to ensure, that these decisions and the sensitive information that are at the core of these decisions are not being leaked or disseminated, and certainly not in real time. And so the fact that any of this would potentially find its way to reporters is disturbing, to say the least.
I don't care who you are. This is bad. Bad that there's recording devices that somehow made it into the skiff. Bad that it's getting leaked and linked to the press. And this is where, today we're talking about, how hate is not a conspiracy theory. It's rampant. It's rampant across the United States. It's rampant across the world. And it's not benefiting anyone, not even us, not even those when, we hate, the Antifa, or we hate the terrorists, or we hate whoever. It's not creating solutions. Now, I'm not saying that we as humans are even capable of not hating, but let's not pretend that it's some conspiracy. Let's not pretend like it's something that's manufactured for no reason. It is real. Now, I say it's real. It's real. In this case, these journalists hate President Trump, and they're trying to engage. I mean, their book is literally called Regime Change, and they are trying to engage in regime change. It's a double entendre, as they say. It's regime change in Iran, except what they're really trying to do is to change the administration here. They want to bust President Trump in some form or fashion. Why? Because they hate him. Legacy media, in general, hates President Trump. That even includes a lot of the people over at Fox News, the producers, the owners. Sure, he's got some allies amongst the hosts, and guests, but Fox News isn't exactly a full-blown conservative, patriotic brand. Perhaps it never was. Perhaps it's always been more rhino neoconish. But they definitely have always hated Trump. Even, take it all the way back to 2016. They were hating on him then. They've been hating on him throughout. He's got his supporters there that honor him, but don't look at Fox News as an exception. They too relish in taking down people like Trump, like Spencer Pratt, like anybody who doesn't fit their George W. Bush brand of quote-unquote conservatism, republicanism, I guess what you'd want to call it. And even then, the owners or the new blood over there, they're Democrats. So, it's just like, at least with Newsmax, I like Newsmax better. But at least Newsmax ownership there, they try to keep their own personal politics, which they're Clinton folks. They keep their own personal politics out of it and let the host do their thing. Fox News, there's a lot more interference, and we saw that. We've seen that many times. I'm not going to dwell on that. Point is that press hates him, and that's a real brand of hate. Now, there is a type of hate that's not real. It's completely manufactured, and even that itself is a conspiracy, not a conspiracy theory. It's an actual full-blown conspiracy. Of course, I'm talking about the SPLC, which got busted again. They just, poor guys. They really thought they had a good thing going with their manufacturing of hatred, but more stuff keeps coming out. According to this article we have over at truthbasedmedia.com, SPLC top official funneled $1.2 million in donor funds to her neo-Nazi lover. It's the type of headline that would have been just a bombshell headline just a couple years ago. And today it's just sort of mid. It's like, of course. Why not, right? File this story under, you can't make this up. The Southern Poverty Law Center has long positioned itself as America's premier watchdog against hate. Yet federal prosecutors now reveal a darker reality. One of its top officials allegedly channeled over $1 million in donor money to a neo-Nazi informant who shared her bed, her home, and a joint bank account. This isn't mere incompetence. It's a stunning indictment of an organization that has weaponized the label of hate while sustaining the very extremism it claims to oppose. According to a superseding federal indictment, employee number 2, widely identified as former intelligence project director Heidi Barrick, maintained a romantic relationship with an informant codenamed F9 inside the National Alliance, a white supremacist organization. Now, let's talk about the National Alliance. This is because they really are. We hear, they funded the KKK, they funded the all the white nationalists. The National Alliance was an organization from a couple of decades ago that was basically dying. Okay, they were dying. It's like nobody cared about them. Nobody cared about them when they weren't dying, and then once they started losing membership, nobody cared about them. They're like, I forgot what's that one group, Patriot Front, I think it's called. Where they walk around in their khakis and they look like FBI agents, and they file out of like box trucks and then go march with their flags and stuff, and it's like people start screaming feds, because it looks like they're feds. And they claim not to be, and I don't think they are, but it wouldn't shock me either if they were. But anyway, National Alliance, they were dying. They were non-existent, basically, on the whole white supremacist front. They were a minor group, and then all of a sudden they started getting more and more attention, I don't know, I guess about a decade or so ago. And as it turned out, they were getting all this attention because the SPLC needed a new boogeyman. They needed fresh blood, fresh reasons for them to be able to raise money and get their their big Hollywood donors to say, oh my gosh, we got to stop the hate, and get their FBI proxies to say, oh my gosh, we've got to abide by what the SPLC says. And next thing you know, they're, again, in this case, funneling money to this guy who was not only a high-level ranking member of this tiny group, but who was also in bed with one of the top executives over there. Like I said, you just can't make this up. It was about a decade ago. Between 2015 and 2021, roughly $140,000 of SPLC funds flowed into their joint accounts, covering personal living expenses, while F9, that's the code name, continued raising money and supporting the group's activities. All told, the SPLC paid this informant more than $1.2 million over 2 decades. So yeah, it's been, they were working this con for a long time. Barrick reportedly used stolen documents from a 2014 burglary at the National Alliance's West Virginia headquarters to publish an article on the SPLC's Hate Watch site. The organization then allegedly paid another informant $6,000 to take the fall for the theft. I mean, did they do anything real? Anything at all? Or were they just manufacturing hate for the sake of raising money to fight hate? I mean, as much damage as they did to the reputations of people that I know, I can smile, I can laugh at them getting busted, but I don't know of any group that is more deserving of this type of scrutiny. These details paint a picture not of noble infiltration, but of a self-perpetuating grift. Keep the boogeyman alive, keep the donations flowing. That's the SPLC's, what's being proven out now. I don't want to jump ahead of any convictions or anything like that, but this is, I mean, they're a nonprofit. Give me a break. Hate is real. You don't need to manufacture it. And if you're having to manufacture, then what you're trying to manufacture itself isn't real. I'm not suggesting by any means that the conservative right, the patriots of this world, that we don't have any hatred in our heart. We're human. It's part of it. But you compare, protests and events from the right compared to protests and events from the left. It's night and day. You try to even just listen to the words. They're insane. And I'm not saying that we don't have crazies on our side either. Obviously, we do. But our crazies are easily identifiable because they stand out. They stand out from the lucid ones, from people like hopefully me and you as you're listening. There are lines that we just won't cross. Number one, we try not to ever, whenever possible, we do not break the law. Whenever possible, we don't engage in violence unless there's violence or threat engaging us. This is standard operating procedure for being a patriot in the United States of America. And yet, groups like the SPLC, Antifa, they do their thing, and it gets ugly. Speaking of Antifa, Andy No had an amazing, what I consider to be a really solid description of what's happening, what Antifa is, and how they're moving forward, and why we should be concerned about them. We'll get to him after the break. I am so glad that my audience is growing because I'm able to expose more and more Americans to the wonders of Promise Grounds coffee. It is, as I've said before, by far, hands down, the best coffee that I've ever had. And I've dealt with lots of coffees, lots of coffee companies. I've represented some, and, it's like, okay, yeah, this is pretty good coffee. And then, of course, Promise Grounds came along and blew me away. Go check them out, jdrucker.com/coffee, jdrucker.com/coffee. And you pick you up a bag or two, taste it, see what you think, see if I'm right, and then get on a nice little subscription model if you want, or no, you don't have to. Just buy it whenever you need it. It is, again, the best coffee in the world. in the world. Andy Ngo was one of the originals, as far as citizen journalists really getting out there and not just, I'm not talking about podcasters like me who sit behind a desk and say, oh, this sucks, that's good, this sucks, that's good. No, he actually took a camera and went out there and started talking to people. He went to places where there were radical leftists doing radical leftist things. He got a name for himself. Soon after that, Antifa started targeting him specifically in Portland, in Seattle, wherever he would go. He would go to these events. They'd be like, "Oh, look, there's Andy Ngo. Let's beat him up. Throw milkshakes on him." The guy developed a brain bleed from one particular assault. He's one of the good guys, and he does have a very strong, and I would say a very intellectually sound understanding of what Antifa actually is. It's not new. It's just a variation on a theme.
Antifa come from a larger and older tradition of left-wing revolutionary violence that existed in the U.S. for more than half a century. It goes back to really the 60s and 70s, where there were groups like the Weather Underground and the Black Liberation Army and others who were communist revolutionaries whose stated enemies were the United States. They often received funding and training and support from state actors that were hostile to the US, like Cuba and other places like that. And since the 80s, those groups were really decimated through the law enforcement authorities in the United States. They were prosecuted, jailed. Many of them went into hiding. They fled abroad. They fled to Cuba. And Antifa's contemporary manifestation in the United States has taken on the lessons from that, in that their violence is, they don't often take aim at the US government. They go for soft targets. For example, like journalists, people on the street, Trump supporters, people at political rallies. And those are the targets that they seek to maim, injure, and or kill. And so that they really do function as a terrorist movement. I want to emphasize that a lot. That's not an exaggeration. And part of the propaganda that makes them really effective is that because they're diffused and they're decentralized. It's not like a singular capital A Antifa organization with clear leadership and membership and card-carrying members. It's not like that. It's decentralized. You have people who operate local cells just based around the ideology, very similar to how like radical Muslims will organize terror cells just around a jihadist ideology and not necessarily be officially a member of any group. And so because of that, the way that they are so diffused, the propaganda that we're told by liberal media and by Democrats and mainstream left-wing liberal people is that I am Antifa if I'm against fascism. So you see that at the No Kings protests, people will wear shirts that say I'm Antifa. In fact, when I had my civil trial against Rose City Antifa, the lawyer for one of the men that I sued and had accused of being part of a conspiracy of an attack on me, she said to the jurist in her closing arguments, I am Antifa. So this is sort of the type of propaganda that's put out to really confuse the public.
I'm going to push back at least a little bit, because he's absolutely right across the board, with the minor exception that, and I know that he knows this, and I know that he has to be very careful with what he says because of investigations that he may or may not be a part of, but there is a centralization component to Antifa. Now, he's right when he says they operate as cells and members don't know necessarily who's controlling what, okay? They get word from their bosses who are local cell directors or whatever you want to call them, and they are all based around an ideology, a fascist ideology that claims to be anti-fascist, which of course would be hilarious if it wasn't so destructive. But there is a centralized component to all of the major Antifa groups. they do get funding from individual sources. Amongst those, and this, I'm going to make an accusation here. This is an accusation that is based upon a feeling. We'll leave it at that. It's more than a feeling, but we'll call it a feeling because I don't want to get myself into trouble. But people such as Neville Roy Singham, out of Hong Kong, out of China, he is funding these groups, and he funds it in a way that, again, it doesn't necessarily. It's done so beautifully. Yeah, I hate to sound like I admire the system, but I do. Not what they do, not the ideology or the results or the attacks or anything like that. All of that is obviously hideous, but the system itself is elegant. It's almost impossible to crack because they use layer after layer after layer after layer after layer. So when Andy Ngo and others say that it's decentralized, yes, technically speaking, these individual groups are operating on their own. That's true. But the marching orders do come down from on high. The money does flow from on high. And many would argue, I would be amongst those, who would argue that this is a manifestation of the powers and principalities from Ephesians 6:12. Or, if you're not a Bible-believing Christian, this is a manifestation of the Globalist Elite Cabal, the New World Order, if you will. This is how they operate, and this is what they do. This is their thing, okay? They make it to where you would have to... They make it to where the people at the bottom don't know much about the people in the middle. And the people in the middle don't know anything about the people at the top. They just know that they're given instructions through this secure chat line, this text thread, this whatever, dead drops or whatever. I don't know the exact format. I just know that they are getting marching orders and they are getting money. And then they distribute that money so that we can have the No Kings riots. We can have the anti-ICE riots. They can pop up randomly wherever. And we've seen across the country, they keep using facial recognition. Thankfully, the FBI is finally starting to do this, and I'm not in favor of any law enforcement using facial recognition, to be clear, but in this particular usage, because they're not using it to gather evidence, they're using it to identify who they believe to be people, and then going about and getting real hard evidence instead of relying on AI or facial recognition to do any of the heavy lifting for them. I'm okay with that, as long as it's, again, not used as evidence. I don't want anybody ever locked up because of facial recognition and artificial intelligence. Okay? We still need good old-fashioned law enforcement investigations. But what they've been able to do, and what they've been able to use this technology to do, is determine that, hey, these guys that are protesting in D.C. were also protesting in Minnesota, and they were also protesting in Portland, and you start to see a trend. You start to understand how this is centralized. It's centralized in a way that's intended to appear to be decentralized. And now there's disadvantages to that as well. Obviously, they can't be as coordinated as a full-blown centralized organization. But they don't want that. They're willing to trade that because they know that, hey, all we got to do is get these people, they don't have like specific identifiable tasks and targets. They just know, put the chaos in this area for this reason. That's all they need to know. That's how they can operate in a decentralized fashion, even if the money and the marching orders are coming from well above them. So he is right. Again, I mean, technically speaking, yes, they are decentralized because, again, the foot soldiers, they don't have like ID badges, they don't clock in and say, okay, but they do get Venmo'd or Cash App'd. I don't think they get PayPal anymore. I think that's sort of out, but you get the idea. They do get money. They are paid. They do get food. They get taken care of. We saw it in Newark. I mean, the system that they put together in Newark, You're telling me that was completely random and organic and decentralized? Okay. Nick Sortor, good friend, he went in and he infiltrated their facilities. And you can't call it. It wasn't like an encampment. It wasn't like, oh, here's a little tent. Go in there and there might be a bottled water and a cheese sandwich. No, they had the catered meals. They had like a little mini hospital. Okay, I mean they had everything. And again, it was funded by, I'm not accusing Neville Roy Singham directly, but people like, we'll say, people like Neville Roy Singham, or if you will, George Soros, or Alex Soros, or whoever. The conspiracies are real. The hate is both real and manufactured. They're not mutually exclusive. Okay? You can't say, oh, well, that hate is manufactured and that hate is real. Sometimes hate can be absolutely real and not manufactured. Sometimes hate can be completely manufactured, like the SPLC, and not be real. But most of the time, it is manufactured and real. You don't have to convince people on the left to hate Donald Trump. You don't have to convince people on the left to hate ICE. You just have to tell them, hey, we're having a little get-together, Get your Venmo ready. We'll send you $50. We'll get you catered lasagna. You just show up here, be ready to hang out for a few days. We'll get you taken care of. Do your thing. They don't have to give them specific instructions. That's the decentralized component of it all. Jeez. This stuff, it really chaps my khakis. Because not only do they make it hard to catch, they make it hard to fight. And I'm a huge fan of figuring out how to fight back. How do you fight back against this? I wish that we could just organize counter-protests. I don't know why we don't. I don't know why anytime there's an anti-ICE event that there's not an equal or greater number of patriots out there supporting ICE. Maybe we need to take a page out of the Neville Roy Singham playbook and figure this one out. Now, the obvious answer to that is that we have jobs and they don't. I mean, that's the obvious answer. But certainly there's somebody we can get. Certainly we can put this together somehow, some way. Get an A-team together to go, a few hundred people to go and travel and go wherever Antifa's going to go. And offer the alternative argument. I'm not saying we got to go there and beat them up. I'm saying we got to go there and counter-protest. But there's nothing like that out there. I'll tell you one thing. If I was Elon Musk, okay, if I was in real life a multi-billionaire and in at least on paper a trillionaire, then yeah, I wouldn't be investing into this candidate's campaign or that candidate's super PAC. I'd be going to the grassroots and trying to organize the way that the left has been doing for a very long time, because that is, in my humble opinion, that can be more powerful. And you can centralize it even. That's the funny part, is that you could centralize this. You could keep it all out in the open. I'm not suggesting we have to go into the shadows like the left. I'm saying just be ready to counter them. If you have to go and hire a whole bunch of people who know their stuff, who can represent properly, who can argue, who we know they're not going to cause trouble. They're just going to be loud and proud and aggressively pro-American. Awesome. Get them together and send them around the country. And when there's not a protest, send them to parks and have barbecues for the communities. I mean, there's so much you could do with that. But I'm not a billionaire or a trillionaire, so I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon. One of the things that the right is getting better at is addressing the opposition in the press or in general conversation. We can we can look at certain things that the left is good at. One thing they're definitely not at all good at is handling anyone, whether it's the press or even independent journalists or just their constituents. If there's any pushback at all, you want to see something funny, just get any Democrat politician or any Democrat commentator onto a panel or even catch them off guard and start asking them hard questions, and they always crumble. And we have a tendency on the right to do better than they do. But we do have certain, I'll call them ideological warriors, that can go into an ugly scenario and come out on top. They can actually communicate our stance, our proper stance. And this is the reason why, by the way, the left has such a hard time. If they're not talking to an extraordinarily friendly journalist who hates Trump along with them and is willing to just ask them softball questions, if you give them any pushback at all, they all turn into Kamala Harris. All of them. We, on the other hand, have certain people, not everybody, and you could say that Trump falls into the category of, you send him in to talk to whoever, and he generally comes out on top. But he's not the best at it. As a matter of fact, even in the White House, he's not the best at it. I would say Stephen Miller is very good at it. Tom Homan is exceptional at it. Scott Bessent is proving to be a master at it. We got a lot of good talkers out there. But amongst those is our Vice President, J.D. Vance. And he walked into the Viper's Nest this morning. Yes, he went on The View. And I think he handled himself just fine.
I'd like to pick up on this theme because I think it's really important. We do have to strike a balance, of course, between enforcing our laws. We don't want to dehumanize people. That is the balance that, look, law enforcement, what I'd say about this, law enforcement is always inherently not a very pretty process, especially when you're dealing sometimes with violent people, with people who are resisting arrest. Some of the people that I've been told by the media were completely peaceful, had never violated any laws. You actually look into the record and you find out that those people were actually being violent, or they did have a criminal record. They had a sex trafficking conviction.
Don't have criminal records. So the majority of people that ICE is rounding up and taking out of their homes from their families, they're separating families. They're using children as bait. But the majority are not criminal.
But can I respond to that, guys? Let me just say this. Okay. So you talk about the children. Here's what I'd say. Do we know that during the last administration, we had tens of thousands of children who were sex trafficked by the cartels, who were brought into our country in profoundly dangerous and predatory conditions?
Let's talk about this administration.
But here's the point. Unless you enforce the border, you invite that kind of conduct. You think that our immigration policies are inhumane based on the reporting of one person with a political bias. What I'm telling you is that it's inhumane to allow cartels to sex traffic people across our border. And by the way,
please hold on.
I appreciate that. We're going to get you back, Anna.
We're coming back with more.
I will put Anna Navarro, by the way, and her smirk up there with one of my least favorite things in the whole wide world. Eric the Gray in the chat noted that people, conservatives, patriots, can be scared and concerned because, yes, the left does get violent. Yes, they have trained us. And I would argue that we always say that the J6 debacle, the true manufactured, don't even get me started on how manufactured that entire event and series of events was. But we always think, the target was Trump. And that's true. They were really using this as a way to not only potentially, get Trump into actual trouble, but also they thought this was their way to prevent him from coming back. Okay. They thought, okay, we stole the election. They stole the 2020 election, and we got to nip this in the bud. We got Pence on our side. We got Bill Barr on our side. We got most members of Congress in the Republican side. They're on our side. They're supportive. So now we just got to stop the people. And J6, as much as it was about going after Trump, it was more about quieting us. It was about sending a message to us that if we fight back, if we protest, they're going to figure out ways to try to stop us and to try to punish us for it. And we saw that shortly after, within a year, there was a rally. I forgot. It's been a while, obviously. But sometime in 2021, there was this big rally. Lots of money was spent on it. And it was a conservative rally. And nobody showed up. Okay. They were estimating over 10,000 people. And there was more press there than there were patriots. We got scared. Call it what you will, but that's what it was. We didn't want to get arrested. There were reports on the day before, a couple of days before, oh my gosh, FBI is going to be infiltrating again and trying to do exactly what they did during J6, and they're going to try to get us to, they're going to manufacture charges. They're going to jail you. If you go, you're going to go to jail. That was the storyline, and nobody showed up. So I understand. I appreciate it. I mean, he's absolutely right when he says that people are scared. But I'm saying that maybe we know, number one, don't break the law. Okay. And I know that the laws they broke were minimal and they were escorted into the building and it was in the moment, but I think we're smarter now than we were back then. Okay. Somebody says, we got to go into the Capitol. We're going to say, no. Lesson learned. So I think that we can do it now. And again, I think that this is a matter of somebody's got to pull it together. Somebody's got to form the organization that's going to do this. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I should. Just a thought. Well, we'll put a pin in that one for now. There's lots that needs to be done. And plus, I'm not a billionaire or a trillionaire, so I need a lot of help to get that done. But we'll talk about that some other time. Back to the topic at hand, though. The press. Handling the press. Sending in our best warriors. It's not just people in the administration. It's people out there in the press that handle themselves properly. And I don't know about if there's anybody who does it better than Scott Jennings. Now, it's sort of easy to say that because he's on CNN. So he lives in the lion's den, basically. And yes, it's only CNN. So they bring on the most idiotic people. It's like they're just bringing in it's like they're feeding Scott Jennings these people to just chew up, right? And maybe that's the point. Maybe they're smart. Maybe they're like, hey, we seem to get better ratings when Scott Jennings is out there eating up a leftist. Let's do that. I don't know. Maybe Abby Phillip is actually pretty smart at this, and she knows how to run her show appropriately. But he does it on the other shows as well. Anyway, but it's not just eating up the those people. That's easy. It's when he's going after Democrats as a whole, leftists as a whole, and especially when he goes after Hollywood. I loved what he said. I think it was either yesterday or it was yesterday. What he said about my least favorite Hollywood guy right now. And this changes all the time, but I would put right up there at the very top as far as the guys that I hate the most in Hollywood. It's Robert De Niro.
I think you have to love your country, whether or not you lost the last election. I love America. And, according to some polling that came out this weekend, most Republicans love America. 90% are very proud to be Americans. They're proud of living in this country. Unfortunately, I think Mr. De Niro's comments are pretty indicative of a majority of Democrats who can't seem to find that attitude, which I applaud, inside them to love your country even though you lost the last election. And, loving America, being a patriot for America, feeling good about America shouldn't be dictated but whether you won or lost. When I hear De Niro, I hear him saying, I can only love America if we win every election from here on out. That's a rather fascist statement.
It is a fascist statement, and he's spot on. And Robert De Niro is legitimately an idiot. Let's go to break. We get back. I'm going to play something. I had skipped it, but I'm going to play something for you from a guy named Liam Out Loud from Blender. It really highlights, I think, the evil that we're facing and why we're facing this evil from the left. And then we'll get into more political talk because, you know me, I love talking politics, so stay tuned. It's funny. I'm glad that I have it on tape that just like 3 or 4 days ago I said, I believe, at least it appears that gold and silver may have hit their bottom. And now we look and we see gold and silver are moving up as of today. Now, I'm not offering financial advice. I'm not going through all of these various charts like my friends over at Advisor Bullion do, but I will say they've been right about this as well. You can check them out, whether you're wanting to look into gold and silver with cash purchase, or if you want to do a rollover or transfer of an IRA or a 401k into a gold and silver backed IRA, my good friend Ira can take care of that for you. You can check him out by going to jdrucker.com/gold, jdrucker.com/gold, and fill out the form. He'll reach out to you and he'll give you square pricing. He doesn't deal with numismatics. He deals only with bullion. He wants to get you as much physical gold and silver into your hands as possible for as little money as possible. So check him out, jdrucker.com/gold. All right, let's get to, and I don't know this guy's full name. I know that based upon his accent, he's probably Canadian or at least like Wisconsin or something. And he's on Blender News. Then that's the extent of my knowledge of him. But he does these 3-minute clips. I assume for like TikTok or whatever. He does these 3-minute clips, and they're nicely produced, but sometimes he nails it. A lot of times it's like, oh, that's sort of weird. But sometimes he nails it, and I think he got it on this one.
We live in an era of unlimited access to information. Some of that is a gift, but it has also given us a direct, unbroken view into horror and evil. Cities flattened on a screen, the curtain pulled back on the Epstein files, a steady feed of stories you once thought belonged only to your nightmares. Some shut it off and pretend it isn't there. Others stare into the abyss until it stares back, then become scarred and cynical. But it has always been this way. 2,000 years before Epstein, there was Caligula, who spent 7 years on Capri, engaged in sadism and cruelty. No matter the era, people so evil that rationality refuses to explain them have always existed. As far as I can tell, there are 3 roads to evil: worshipping the wrong things, succumbing to ideology, and becoming so bitter that you resent life itself. First, worshipping the wrong things. A certain kind of person sets wealth, lust, power, and status as his highest values and will do anything to obtain them. He lies, cheats, and steals for more sex, control, fame, and money. Once he has them, he believes morality no longer applies to him. He stands above these silly guardrails. Laws are for the weak, he says, while counting himself among the strong who dictate them. Everyone else becomes an instrument. Second, ideology. A certain kind of person, on stepping away from a religious worldview, fills the vacuum with ideology. God no longer works in mysterious ways. Instead, he holds a system that tells him exactly why things are the way they are and how they ought to be. He casts himself as scientific. The world is the way it is because of an intelligible chain of cause and effect. The communists held it to be class struggle. The Nazis, genetic determinism. The ideologue believes he is entitled to seize that chain, choosing new causes, so the world is remolded in his ideology's image. People become cogs in a machine, swapped out or sacrificed in the pursuit of utopia. Third is resentment. Those who see themselves as helpless victims end up hating life itself. They believe life was meant to be easy and every hardship was thrust upon them unfairly. I never asked to come into this world. Life is a curse, they whine, yet they are too cowardly to end it. So their purpose becomes opposing those who are truly alive. Their value system inverts. Good becomes evil. Strength is mocked. Weakness praised. Wealth becomes theft, and theft becomes reclaiming what was always yours. These 3 roads have always existed and always will. You cannot stop others from walking them, but it is your responsibility not to.
And it's funny because the way that he words it, I think he did the order wrong. If it were me, I would say that you've got a bunch of people in that third class. They just hate everything. They just suck. They're miserable. Okay. They're just really they want to oppose things. This is what drives Antifa, right? They don't actually have solutions. They can't really identify the problems, but they know that they hate it, whatever it is. And they despise you and me for being happy. They despise you and me for being free. Then I think he should have gone to what they perceive themselves as, which was that road number 2, the intellectual who's above it all. This is where they're driven by hatred, but they think they're smart. I mean, they do. Have you ever talked to any of them? Oh, they think that they've got the moral high ground, the intellectual high ground. They come across as just insufferable, and it's embarrassing. You know, there are certain people that come across as, and they might legitimately have an upper hand in, power or money or attractiveness or whatever, intellectual skills. But these guys that we face on a regular basis on the left, they're just hateful and they think they're smart. And then the third road, which is, I think, what he describes as worshiping the wrong gods, I think that it is their religion of godlessness that drives everything. It drives their hatred. It drives their self-perception of being above it all. And it really does, in many ways, it is a self-perpetuating condemnation. They get stuck in this loop. Now, I am a firm believer that the Holy Spirit can reach anyone. That no matter how evil somebody is, that they can still be redeemed through powers far greater, exponentially greater than anything we can possibly possess. We might not be able to talk one of them down or talk some sense into them, but the Holy Spirit can. The Holy Spirit can wake them up. We saw, let's call it what it was. Saul, who became Paul, Saul was, this dude murdered Christians, for sport. He was good at it. Okay? He was the best, which is why he was the perfect vessel through which we were able to get the strong majority of the books in the New Testament. He was the perfect person for that. Why? Not because he was holy and righteous from the beginning, but because he was a manifestation of anti-righteousness that was wrapped in what he believed at the time to be righteousness. If he can be redeemed and utilized in ways that have saved countless millions, maybe billions of people over the decades, over the centuries, over the millennia, then yeah, even your local Antifa thug can be saved. Praise God for that. All right. Like I said, we're getting back into the politics side. That was my brief spiritual interlude, thanks to Liam Out Loud. Let's talk about James Tallarico. I know I've mentioned him a few times, but I do consider him to be the biggest threat for the Senate. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, there's no chance that he could possibly win in Texas." But we're already seeing their strategy unfold. Their strategy is one of absolute bald-faced, unambiguous, prima facie lies. They are lying about him. And they're doing it unabashedly. They don't care. They are depending on the ignorance of the voters in Texas to drive him to victory. And do not underestimate the potential for this. If Rush Limbaugh were alive today, he would be very concerned about James Tallarico. I guarantee it. Because he knows about the drive-by media. He knew about low information voters, and you could say whatever you want to say about Texas or anywhere else, but most voters are stupid. And James Tallarico is smart. He might be evil. He might be just a total heretic when it comes to his theology. He might be a radical leftist when it comes to his political ideology. But to a low information voter who never heard of James Tallarico and who gets hammered by $250 million worth of ads that they're going to spend in Texas to try to get this guy across the finish line, as they're going to attack Ken Paxton hardcore, and they're going to try to position, they already are trying to position James Tallarico as the exact opposite of what he actually is. This is the game plan. They're not, I would say they're telegraphing it. That's not even the right way. They're just flat out doing it. They're just like, you know what? No, James Tallarico is the most conservative person on running for Senate. James Tallarico is a godly man. James Tallarico is against open borders. James Tallarico loves barbecue and brisket. I mean, they're flat out lying about him. It's disgusting. And it could work. Don't underestimate him. Don't say, oh, there's no chance he can't win. He's just too... If you know about James Tallarico, you are amongst the few. You're a rarity. You are politically minded. You're paying attention. The people around you, the voters in Texas, they're not paying attention. They can be easily swayed. I was not scared of Beto O'Rourke. Okay? I have not been nearly as concerned for Texas as other Republicans have been in the past. Oh my gosh, Texas is Ted Cruz is gonna lose, or whatever. Cornyn's gonna lose, or I have never feared that. I've never feared a Democrat winning a statewide election in Texas until now. Cambry, who's from Texas, I don't know her last name, but she did a nice little expose on James Tallarico. It would behoove us all to pay attention and to spread the word.
You know, a politician is in trouble when his campaign has to literally rewrite history faster than he rewrites his own positions. Well, James Tallarico wants us Texans to believe that he was some fearless border hawk who stood up to Joe Biden. But there's just one problem. When reporters asked his campaign for proof, they couldn't produce any evidence that Tallarico ever opposed Biden on border security before launching his Senate campaign. Not one. So let's talk about the real James Tallarico, because I have the receipts. Yeah, the same James Tallarico who supported Julian Castro for president. Not just supported him, he called Castro my hero. You remember Julian Castro, right? Well, the guy who wanted to decriminalize illegal border crossings, tear down our border barriers, give taxpayer-funded healthcare to illegal immigrants in their detention, hand out amnesty, and couldn't even name someone he wouldn't let into the country. That's Tallarico's hero. Tallarico even attacked funding the border wall. Yep, he thought Barack Obama's immigration policies were too conservative and joined the left in attacking Obama as the deporter-in-chief. Oh, he helped illegal immigrants avoid deportation by distributing guides on how to navigate around immigration enforcement. He referred to illegal immigrants as his constituents. His constituents. He called them undocumented Americans, guys, and said we should not deport our neighbors, and then there's us. Just a few months ago, Tallarico said he wants to abolish ICE and called it a secret police force that is terrorizing communities. Abolish ICE. Now, that's not a conservative position. That's not even a moderate Democrat position. That's a progressive activist fantasy land. And because every political transition tour needs a sermon from this guy, Tallarico also declared you can't call yourself a Christian and reject the stranger seeking asylum at the southern border translation. If you disagree with James Tallarico's open border policy, he's going to question your faith too. So let's just stop pretending. James Tallarico didn't just suddenly discover border security. He didn't suddenly wake up and decide Biden failed. He didn't suddenly become concerned about illegal immigration. He's trying to run away from a record that Texans can read for themselves. James Tallarico is exactly what he's always been. An open borders, radical leftist who spent years attacking our border enforcement, attacking deportations, attacking ICE, and cheering on the same policies that helped create this mess. And he wants voters to forget, sorry, James, the internet exists. The receipts exists, and no amount of campaign rebranding can turn an open borders activist into a border security conservative. And at the end of the day, James Tallarico belongs exactly where voters will put him. In the same loser club with Beto O'Rourke, Julian Castro, and Colin Allred. Different names, same failed agendas, and same results.
Oh, I hope she's right. I hope that we do get the same results. But again, with everybody she listed, I have never been concerned. With James Tallarico, I'm very concerned. The dude's got he's got a snake tongue. He comes across, when he speaks, he's compelling. He's got that pastor style to him. And I'm going to repeat this for the fifth time. Don't underestimate him. Ken Paxton needs our help. Ken Paxton needs to be on Capitol Hill. And I'm very thankful, by the way, bouncing off a story from yesterday, he did the whole, Brandon Soros-Backed saga is over. Soros-Backed is the quarterback with a gambling problem who was going to be playing for Texas Tech. And Ken Paxton made what I consider to be the mistake of backing him and saying, nope, don't mess with Texas Tech. Talking to the Big 12, taking a relatively unpopular, albeit not important position, but it is a position that I think could have hurt him. And thankfully, it's over. Soros-Backed said, you know what, I'm out. I'm just going to go in the NFL supplemental draft, hopefully get picked up and make a squad somewhere. Good. Just get Ken Paxton off of that one, because we need him not messing with college football. We need him messing with John Thune. Speaking of John Thune, I should start calling him like John Thune, just with all the spite that he deserves, because he is horrible. Article we have over conservativeplaylist.com. Thune defies Trump. Senate pushes standalone FISA renewal as election integrity takes back seat. I'm not going to read the article. You can read the article yourself. But the bottom line is, a few days ago, 2 days ago, President Trump went to Truth Social, said he wants the Save America Act attached to the FISA bill. Okay? Makes sense. One's about national security. The other one is about national security. Now, I'm not in favor of FISA, to be clear, but enough Republicans, enough Democrats, enough deep state puppets are in favor of FISA that you can slow it down, but you're never going to stop it. That's a discussion when we have more constitutional conservatives on Capitol Hill. Then we can have that discussion, and that's why I want Ken Paxton there. But in the meantime, hey, if we're stuck with FISA, we might as well get the Save America Act passed as well, right? Makes sense. Makes sense. But John Thune hates President Trump. And if you think, there's any chance that maybe he just pushes back a little bit when he feels like it, no. John Thune is Mitch McConnell in a younger, taller body. That's it. Some would argue, and I've made this argument before, that he is worse than Mitch McConnell, even when Mitch McConnell was in his prime. John Thune is controlled. John Thune should never have been Senate Majority Leader. John Thune should never have been in the Senate. He's a rhino's rhino, hardcore. He's a uniparty swampster through and through. He does not want the Save America Act passed, which is why he changed the subject. Once Susan Collins flipped and voted in favor of Mike Lee's amendment. That brought it to 50-50. All of a sudden, everybody's like, oh my gosh, okay. So if we get rid of the filibuster and we use Mike Lee's version of the Save America Act, which is a lighter version, but still totally acceptable, better than what we got, the House version. If we do that, well, by golly, we can get this done. Okay, John Thune, what do you say about that? Nothing. He said nothing. He unleashed his puppet, Tom Tillis, to go out there and leak a memo ripping on Tommy Tuberville, ripping on Susan Collins. making threats, talking about how the Save America Act is hurting the Republican Party. Really? That's your stance? That an idea such as voter fraud, which is approved by a majority of Democrats, by a strong majority of Americans, 80% or more, want this, and you're saying, oh, it would hurt the Republican Party if we were to get this passed. Don't listen to what the people want. Listen to what we want them to want. Not going to get mad. Not going to get mad. But we do need Ken Paxton in the Senate. We've got lots of races today. I'm not going to weigh in on them. There's a little bit of controversy. There's a little bit of you know, not exactly unification. You got Ted Cruz going against some of Trump's picks, not just in Georgia. You got Missouri. You got Oklahoma. It's a lot of weird things going on. But I know this. I know that we absolutely positively need to pass the Save America Act. I know that John Thune's time should be reduced, limited. I would love to see almost anybody. You know, Cornyn, who's obviously out after this session. Cornyn is, he would have been better. That's how bad John Thune is. John Cornyn, who I despise, I just despise him less than John Thune. I would have rather had Cornyn in there as Senate Majority Leader. Rick Scott, who's pretty good, you know, above average, I'd say. Not the best by far, but definitely not as bad as John Thune or John Cornyn. He was the one that I would have actually wanted of the three. He's the lesser of the three, the least of the three evils. So, yeah, let's get him in there. Let's get anybody other than John Thune. I'd almost rather have Mitch McConnell in there. At least with Mitch McConnell, you know, he wouldn't do anything. This is why we can't have good things, nice things, folks. It's not because of the Democrats. They do cause a lot of it, I should say, but it really is. It comes down to the fact that we are, as a Republican Party, in the Senate specifically, or particularly, but also to some extent in the House, the rhinos rule. And that's got to change. Almost, it's not quite, I used to actually say it's more important to get a conservative to beat a rhino than to get a rhino to beat a Democrat. I've softened on that view the last two election cycles because the Democrats have gone just absolutely insane. Okay, so back when I used to say that, they weren't quite as insane. You know, this goes all the way back to the days when you had Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton both claiming that they were against gay marriage. So yeah, it's been a little while, but not that long ago. They've just gone crazy. So yeah, I would rather have a Republican. I would rather have, as much as it just pains me to say it, I would still rather have Susan Collins. Oh, I think I just threw up in my mouth. I'd rather have Susan Collins than Graham Plattner. Why? Because Graham Plattner is insane. Let's take away his character flaws. Let's take away the Nazi tattoo and everything else. Let's just look at his ideology. His ideology is crazy. Okay? That's why Bernie's like, oh, what Nazi tattoo? We love Graham Plattner. Oh, it's so bad. So bad. We need some good news. I got good news. Stay there. I got some good news for you. Let's get some good news out there real quick. Inject this into your veins because this is what we need to make for a better day.
Your side digging deeper into a new settlement between Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools and the families of 3 students who painted this design on a spirit rock.
You can see it features a quote, "Live like Kirk," with red, white, and blue paint.
Now, the message came just days after Charlie Kirk's death last September.
Now, the district originally called the painting vandalism, but now they're reversing that decision.
WBTV's Dalford Jones breaks down the settlement and speaks with one of the family's attorneys.
This is the Spirit Rock here at Ardrey-Kell High School. Now, it basically serves as a billboard for different topics that are important to the students. Today, it honors the school's swim and dive team on a successful season. But you may remember, last year in September, it paid tribute to Charlie Kirk after he was shot and killed. The message, "Long Live Kirk," a Bible scripture, and the words "Freedom 1776" were painted on the school Spirit Rock by 3 students after conservative influencer Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
Oh, she wanted to memorialize him, and she wanted to express a message of hope and faith, reminding folks that even though he had been killed, because he was a Christian, he had hope for eternal life through Jesus Christ.
CMS originally said the rock was painted without permission and was considered vandalism to school property. The parents of one of the 3 students filed a federal lawsuit, claiming the district violated their daughter's constitutional rights. Senior counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom, Travis Barham, told us the student did get permission from the school to paint the message on the Spirit Rock.
To do the research, to call ahead, to get permission to paint the rock, and then to find out within hours that your message has been censored, and a day later that you're publicly accused of a crime simply because you painted a rock that students have been painting for decades.
We spoke to people in the Ballantyne area about the case and student expression on campus.
Well, I think the kids need to know that maybe their opinions are okay, and they shouldn't be chastised for whichever opinion they have.
I think that there should be guidelines and what students can and can't do, but they should absolutely be able to express themselves.
On Monday, CMS reversed its stance, saying its original decision was wrong. Barham says as part of the settlement, the district will pay $95,000 in damages and attorney fees, exonerate the student for any alleged wrongdoing, and as we reported last week, implement a new student free speech policy. Barham told me, yes, this is a costly, expensive mistake for CMS, but what it does is sends a clear message that constitutional rights are to be respected. I also reached out to the vice chair of the CMS board for comment on the settlement as well as the new student free speech policy. We haven't heard back yet, but once we do, we'll let you know. We're in South Charlotte. Dalford Jones, WBTV, on your side.
Now, I'm going to give just a little bit. I'm so happy for this ruling, for the money, for everything. Yeah, and I totally, absolutely miss Charlie Kirk, of course. But I will push back on the idea of free speech for students. Look, to me, and call me old school, free speech starts at 18. Okay, prior to that, when you're still a kid, you don't really. I know a lot of people will say no. Free speech is constitutional regardless of age. No, I don't think it is. I don't think so. I know it is, but there are limits when they're that young, and I am one who would impose those limits, whether at school or just out and about. I think that there needs to be restraints of sorts. They should start with the parents, of course, but to me, kids don't need free speech rights. Not maybe, I guess maybe to some extent, obviously, but not not to the same degree as an adult. Once you're an adult, free speech kicks in fully, I guess, is my way of looking at it. Then again, I've also, over the last 3 decades, I've had 4 kids, so maybe I have a different perspective. We do have some breaking news, and this is new to me, so I'm going to be putting it out there live, doing it live. So I don't know what this is about, but it popped up. Ugh, cheese and rice. I can't show it because you can't show it if on Fox News with ad blocker on, and I got ad blocker. Okay, let me just turn off ad blocker. Fine. Jeez. Okay, there you go. I guess that's their right. If I'm gonna play that game, right? Here we go. Okay. According to Fox News, Iran World Cup team forced to leave U.S. after tournament opener in an apparent change of plans. Coach Amir Golanoui called the situation very strange and said his team is the most oppressed in the World Cup. That might be true. You know, I mean, yeah, whatever. After originally being slated to spend the night in Los Angeles following the World Cup opener on Monday, the Iranian men's team was ordered to leave the country as soon as possible. Coach Amir Golanoui said it was ordered to leave the U.S. and return to its training base in Mexico only a few hours after opening its politically charged tournament by playing to a 2-2 draw with New Zealand on Monday night. Golanoui didn't say who ordered the Iranians to leave earlier than planned. The team had expected to spend the night in California to maximize the normal recovery process after its opening game, only to be told after the match that everyone must immediately get on a plane for the 140-mile trip back to Tijuana. They didn't even give us time to recover, he said. After the game today, they said to us, you have to leave immediately. It's very important to us to have time for recovery, but we are asked to get on a plane and return to our camp in Tijuana and are really troubled by that. Iran's captain, Mehdi Teremi, said the team endured 5 hours of travel and scrutiny security checks during what is normally a very short trip from Tijuana to the Los Angeles area on Sunday. We don't know why they are returning us, to be honest. I don't know why either. That's an interesting one. I wonder what happened. I mean, you would think that if they were planning on blocking them, they would have blocked them before they arrived. So what changed from the time they got here until the time they're leaving? Did they discover a plot? Did they just, man, oh my gosh, look, these guys are on the terror list, or holy cow, you know, we intercepted communications saying that they're going to do something bad. I don't know. This is weird. Very weird. And we don't know who did it either. So we don't know if this is something that, if anybody in the chat knows, if you've heard anything, and yeah, Rosebud asked, IRGC order that? Apparently, so you would think, based upon the verbiage, that they were ordered by World Cup officials. That's what it seems like to me. If they were ordered home by the IRGC, first of all, they would have been ordered home and not to Mexico, I think. I don't know. This is weird. Very weird. Sum of all fears. Ooh, don't get me started. That was one of the first Clancy books that I ever read. Movie was no good, but the book was actually pretty darn scary. Yeah. I don't know. This is weird stuff. It's just a weird day. And again, this is what happens when you're in my business. My business is not just being the show. I'm saying what I do outside of the show, because we do, you know, obviously I run multiple news aggregators. I own my own, which you can find at jdrucker.com. Just my name, jdrucker.com. I update that throughout the day, except when I'm on the show. It's the only 2 hours where I don't update. Otherwise, it's literally the other 22 hours with the occasional nap here and there. But yeah, as a result of running these news aggregators, I have to read the headlines constantly throughout the day. And I'm telling you, things are accelerating. They have been accelerating. They accelerated really fast around mid-2024 for obvious reasons with the election. But even after the election, it just didn't stop. And they kept getting more and more and faster and faster and faster. I often say I read between 1,500 and 2,500 headlines per day. I've been saying that for years. I would argue that if I were to actually count it again, because I haven't counted it since probably 2022-ish, if I were to count it again, it's probably at least a third more than that. So, yeah, I'm probably reading somewhere between, say, 2,000 and 3,500 articles, headlines. I don't read the whole articles. I read a lot of the whole articles, but I read mostly the headlines. I watch a lot of the videos, obviously, and that's what I bring to the show. but it does give me a bit of the insight into not just what's happening, pulse of the world kind of stuff, but also, perhaps more importantly, the speed at which the news, the sentiment is shifting. Okay, and that's a very annoying thing to have to do 365 days a year, but it's also, I consider it to be a blessing. It's better than digging ditches, even though maybe it's not. Maybe this is worse. Who knows? But yeah, we're gonna cut a little short today, not for any negative reasons, but I have a family member's birthday to attend to, so I'm gonna go do that. So thank you all for coming. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode, but in the meantime, stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.